Invincible Season 3 gave us two of the craziest battles the show's ever had, the Invincible War and the brutal fight against Conquest. So let's break down every single difference between these two arcs and their original comic versions to see what all changed and why. Let's get to it. The Invincible War. This is directly from issues 60 and 61, and this thing was a huge crossover event that bring everyone from Image Comics into this fight. So all the spin-off characters, this Batman knockoff, which I'll talk about more in that video, and even freaking Spawn. Imagine seeing Spawn in the show, that would be so cool, but you know, he's not here. But anyways, it still starts the same way. We saw what Angstrom did after the events of the season 2 finale. It's all one-to-one so far, literally. Like, they add some dialogue on how bad he feels about Powerplex, and then he gets a call on the Invincible. This is his first call on it. While in the show, his first call was when Mr. Liu came around. He also didn't think the call was gonna be this serious, but boy was he wrong. The show does this part pretty well. All of the other versions of Mark just start flooding in, and it's crazy. It's the same in the comic, but let's get started with the differences. The guy he's fighting here is different. And they cut out the part where Scar Mark, which by the way, I'm just gonna make up names, don't kill me. But yeah, they did cut out the part where Scar Mark says he wants to kill his own father. And also he says this line,
"I've killed you before, and I'll kill you again,"
to Spawn in the comic, while here it's to Wolfman. Now, I don't understand why they just didn't bring in Spawn, since they're in the same comic company. If anybody knows, let me know. Anyways, though, Sinister Mark fights Duncan Rosenblatt, the king of monsters in the comic, who's also from that one Cartoon Network movie from back in the day. And they instead brought another hero who is pretty cool, but he barely shows up in the comic. Tech Knight is actually fighting Mustache Mark here instead of Long Hair Mark like in the comic. Then it shows Shrinking Ray moving out, and of course that's new, everything about her is new. Then our Mark gets to Stronghold Prison and he finds Mohawk Mark destroying everything. Like, their shades of blue and black are different, while in the comic they have the exact same color hues. Mark tries to get answers out of Mohawk, but he does not crack. He beats him, and 3 heroes instead of 4 come to stop our Mark, mistaking him for an evil variant. And Bolt finally makes his debut in the show. He's been around since the Guardians of the Globe's funeral. Powerplex escapes and thinks people are realizing how terrible Invincible is, but to his surprise, it's actually another Mark. Then he just gets one-punched and is down for the count, while here he escapes and takes down a hero that was trying to stop him from escaping. Oliver goes out to fight, which is the same in the comic, they just added this scene. And then we get to the Pentagon, with them defeating another version of him, but it took everything in their disposal to do so. But he uses the sonic earpiece thing here, but in the comic, Britt is the one who shows up and saves them alongside my boy Donald. They end this scene with Cecil making some calls to every single hero in the world. They also talk about how this Mark isn't as strong as ours, which gives them hope on winning. We finally meet Britt for the very first time, and he looks pretty freaking tough, bro. He leads this team, while in the comic, it's being led by some Archer. And a few of these characters are people we've seen in the Guardians tryouts in season 1, but literally none of them are in this part in the comic at all, so it looks like they're all brand new. Kid Omni-Man is saving people, and he comes across a different version of Mark than in the comic. This one actually fights Savage Dragon, who is yet to make a debut. Their fight is longer, while here it's just a panel and that's it. Facetile Mark fights random heroes here, but in the comic, he's being beaten by the Cyber Force, a superhero team from Image Comics that came out before Invincible. The Mummy showing up is of course new, and she's very hurt for some reason, and I forgot why, to be honest. I don't know if they showed why or not, so I'm guessing we'll see more about that in season 4. I have no idea. Sinister Mark fights Oliver too in the comic, while here he fights this guy. I don't even know who he is, sadly, but he also says he murdered his own father. Then all these Marks are just fighting completely different people than in the comic. Like, this one's fighting the guy from the Guardians tryouts. These two, who are just like these characters from Mortal Kombat, are fighting Shoulder Mark, and the kid just dies, bro. But this is new. The long-haired one fights these guys instead of Tech Knight. Even our Invincible jump Facetile Mark, and then Omnivincible flies in. This is new because here we only see him dealing with the Batman knockoff. And I also love the Mortal Kombat sounds this dude is making. Bro, it's so cool. I really like this part. But the one thing that is the same is Amber gets messed up. Like, both her legs were destroyed. Mark grabs her and flies away. No Goggle Mark is whooping the Guardians of the Globe. And he's also way more playful here than in the comic. Here he just calls them pathetic like literally every other version does. And just chops Immortal's head clean off in the beginning of the fight. Like, he's out of there. But in the show, he's hanging on because this is personal. It's like Omni-Man all over again. Especially since it's happening at the Guardians HQ and Darkwing is here. And we also see the same fatality he did in the comic with Immortal and Kate. Then Darkwing takes him to the Shadowverse. This moment with William and Rick is new, and another Mark is looking to kill Debbie because he did it before, which we also see in the show. Then we cut to Forehead Mark, and he's just laying waste to the teen team's biz. This also happens in the comic, but of course the show just elaborates on it more. Bulletproof saves Robot, and he says we gotta go, but Rex says no, get them out of here. The comic makes it obvious that he's trying to sacrifice himself, while here Rex kind of tricks them into leaving. He holds out longer than he does in the comic, but it ultimately ends up the same. Wolfman makes another appearance, and pretty much every single person they show during the aftermath is different from the comic. This is the same though, except for when Mark chooses to stay even when Cecil said his mom and his brother are still out there. And it also shows Oliver winning, but it's against another Mark. And we also see Powerplex and Tech Knight flying back to Earth, and he makes it just in time for day 3. They introduce the final 8 strongest versions of Invincibles, the same way it does in the comic. The only difference is that the show switched out this version and replaced him with Omnivincible, which I think is a good change because he has a lot of potential. He looks pretty cool, and he's actually dead in the comic right now. He didn't make it to day 3, so I'm glad he's here. They meet at Mark's parents' house, and Omnivincible says,
I hate coming back to this place.
While Sinister Mark is the one that says that here. The others though have the same dialogue more or less, except Sinister Mark leads the charge to go against Angstrom in the comic, while here everyone seems to agree with him, except for Mohawk and Full Body Mark initially. Still, they do get on the same page, and they all try to gang up on Angstrom until they're all sent to the same wasteland that Mark was stranded in. The comic kinda alludes to them coming back, but the show does not. Cecil tells R-Mark they found Angstrom, and he teleports there, and this is new. While here, he just flies in with both Oliver and Bulletproof, which is honestly pretty cool, because if y'all didn't know, Bulletproof was Mark's original hero name during the creation of this comic. But yeah, of course the fight is a little different in the comic. Oliver and Bulletproof are getting pummeled by these battle spheres, but Mark is maneuvering and tanking them in both mediums. Their fight is also longer in the show, thankfully. Angstrom also has way more battle spheres in the show than he does in the comic. The show adds him saying that if he gets into a portal, he will kill everyone he loves and will come back for him. And that's when Mark uses his willpower to beat the odds and finally get his hands on Angstrom. Oliver comes out of nowhere saying, "Kill him!" just like he does here, but he gets away. The comic has them exchange some dialogue though on the other side of the portal. Then he tries to go back, but the scientists don't give him a second chance. And now day 4 is upon us. And in both mediums, we see the remnants of the Invincible War. The newscaster talking about it all asks, why did this all happen? And why did all the attackers resemble Invincible? Kind of painting him out to be this bad guy, with the only person speaking up for Mark is Savage Dragon. But they cut all of this out in the show. Mark is talking to Eve about how he should have killed Angstrom the first time, and Cecil agrees. And this is actually new, but it hits home about one of the core themes this season. You know, responsibility, choosing who lives or dies. Mark helps with the cleanup, and Powerplex is there. He's helping too. People thought he was just a random hero until he attacks Mark. But Oliver and Mark is the ones that stop him, while here everyone else does. And he gets pinned down by what looks like a Clayface knockoff from Batman. Britt takes him away, but he does plant that seed of doubt in everyone's mind. Mark is in the hospital and he's sorrowful. Eve's parents come in, and it's literally 1-to-1 right here, like the mom is practically reading from the comic here. Immortal comes back and Kate's there to greet him, but she has longer hair here. And then Immortal quits the team because he wants to start a family. Cecil meets with the heroes and asks Mark to lead the Guardians because they know that some enemy will come around while they're still rebuilding. But Mark refuses in both mediums and wants to help with the cleanup instead. Mark is particularly more emotional in the show, but still manages to say thank you to Cecil at the end, while in the comic he handles himself pretty well. But despite that, Britt still calls him a moody little cuss in the comic, which I don't even know what that means. Mark helps with the cleanup, and that's when Conquest comes in. And he looks so rugged and imposing in the comic when he first arrives, completely covering the sun. And in both mediums, it ends with Mark needing something to hit. And that's when we finally get to the season finale. This is the 3-part series dubbed Conquest, which takes place right after the Invincible War, and it's crazy because it's almost 1-to-1 with the comic, like barely anything changes. Episode 8 starts with Conquest Part 2. Conquest headbutts Mark and pins him down, while in the comic he just tackles him. Honestly, all you see is just tackling and destruction in both mediums and pretty similar dialogue. All we know is that Conquest is a monster. Their fight takes them to space, and in the comic, Conquest is enjoying himself, but here he is way more expressive about it. And I don't even know how he does this in space, but this is also something he doesn't do in the comic. Oliver goes to help in both mediums, but she actually has Debbie's blessing here, while in the comic she does not want him to go. Mark coughs up blood here, and that's a slight change, and it's really here to show just how outclassed he is when first meeting a person like Conquest. Oliver does try to catch up though, but they're way too fast. Mark gets pummeled even more, and then that's when he finally catches up and Conquest instantly grabs him in the comic. In the show though, he straight up mollywops him and then catches him. Mark gets Oliver to safety and then regains the upper hand after Conquest provokes him. Conquest, by the way, is more or less the same ruthless killer here. Arguably way worse than Nolan because he willingly disobeys Viltrumite orders just to get a real fight. He's literally trying to draw Mark's full strength for the fun of it and will kill anybody in order to get it, which is the complete opposite of Nolan and everybody else's reasoning for doing anything in the Empire. Meanwhile, back at the Pentagon, Cecil is pissed. In the comic, he has a broken arm from the Invincible War, which I forgot to count that earlier, so I'm gonna do it now. But here it's healed. Either way it goes, nothing is going right. D. Sinclair's ace in the hole isn't ready yet, so there is no way to help Mark against the strongest Viltrumite we've ever seen. In the show, Cecil's just angry, but in the comic, he is spooked. Now we're at Conquest Part 3. And in the show, the newscaster reports on Mark fighting a new Viltrumite. In the comic, people finally realize that Invincible is actually invincible, and for some wild reason, after analyzing this footage, they think that this is Omni-Man, which whoever analyzed this needs to get fired. Eve wakes up and realizes Mark needs help. Then her parents figure out he's invincible and she rushes off. That's the same in both mediums. Conquest says his father is dead in both versions, which we know isn't true, but there's no way Mark knows this. Oliver then comes back and they extended this part in the show. He punches Oliver and catches him again. Conquest grabs Oliver and just starts trying to tear him apart, bro. And it's so sad, it's crazy, honestly. You see the agony. Mark stops him and then Cecil picks up Oliver. Then Eve talks to Cecil about helping. Her clothes are different than in the comic, but the bigger difference is the explanation. Cecil says they're moving so fast that a portal can't even catch them, so there's no point in trying. While here, he says this Viltrumite might even be stronger than Nolan. And since you're injured, there's no way I'm bringing you out there. Like, you're just gonna get yourself killed. But Eve pretty much forces him to bring her anyways. Now they're out to sea, and in the comic, Mark's dragged through boats and terrain, while in the show, Conquest takes a page from Nolan's book and drags him through people on the beach into towns, destroying whole streets. And then Adam Eve arrives. In the comic, she's like, oh wait, you're not Omni-Man, what the heck is the news talking about? While in the show, she just calls him an animal. After that though, she just powers up here and starts gaining the upper hand, using all kinds of powers and everything that's in her disposal, which this didn't happen in the comic, because as soon as she pulled up, Conquest just instantly screwed her up. But the crazy thing is, their fight literally lasted 60 seconds, just like comic Cecil predicted, because there, if he did send another hero, they would literally only last for like a minute. Eventually though, the show does catch up and Eve, effectively dies. But before he dies, Mark cries out to Cecil in the show, but he does not do that in the comic. And then we finally get to the conclusion of Conquest. Mark sees Eve reviving, and Conquest takes that to his advantage, but the show adds this dialogue. They add Conquest's loneliness, how everyone thinks he's unstable. That's why he's sent from planet to planet, because they don't understand his greatness. He essentially trauma dumps on Mark because he's about to kill him once and for all, until Eve saves him and burns his skin clean off. And it basically follows the comic from here on. They completely murder Conquest, and they both collapse on the ground, but when the other heroes arrive, there's more of them here in the comic than there is in the show, and Monster Girl covers up Robot's eyes, since Eve is naked. In the next issue, Eve is in the hospital with Mark. She explains that she didn't actually die. The mental block that was on her powers just broke because she was at her breaking point, and she was able to rebuild herself. In the comic though, when she comes back, she makes her breasts bigger. Then they lay together here, but in the comic, it's hinted that they do something else. Debbie and Paul catch them kissing in the comic, while here they're just relaxing, and Debbie blames herself at Mark's condition and tells him to quit being a hero here. They both say no, and Debbie snaps at Eve and then leaves with Paul. This was all cut in the show, but I really wish they didn't. That was some good drama, low-key. Cecil comes in and Mark instantly forces him to show him where Conquest's body is. He tells him to burn it in the show, while here, he just says he's glad he's dead. They have Rex's funeral afterwards. There are different heroes present compared to the comic, but other than that, it's pretty faithful. Afterward, Mark and Eve go home. Eve takes off his clothes, and we notice that there's something going on with Eve's powers. In the comic though, there's a flower blooming here. The finale ends with us learning that the Sequids were living in the sewers this whole time, which is actually different because they do show this in the comic too, but they also show the Sequids way earlier, like in the Invincible War and things like that. But here they just cut that all. Also, Battle Beast being saved is new, and this could have something to do with the new Battle Beast spin-off adaptation, since he's going into the same circumstances he's in issue 1 of that comic. And Cecil actually constructs a whole fake body just to deceive Mark. Another thing the show cuts. Then Oliver ends up talking to Mark about him getting out tomorrow and to help Mark with cleanup. And Mark is distant because all he can think about is how Eve's powers have been acting up. They talked about this in the comic, but this was cut in the show. But there is one thing that stays the same.
You were right. You were right about the Maulers. You were right about Angstrom. They hurt so many people, ruined so many lives. Angstrom almost killed you and Mom even. So if anyone else ever puts my family or anyone I love at risk, I won't hesitate to kill them.
And it ends with Damien freaking Darkblood, what the heck, coming out of nowhere, summons the supposed Demon King and promises the body of a powerful surface dweller so he can either A, take over, like via mind control or something, or B, possess it. I'm pretty sure they're talking about Nolan though, because if it's not Nolan, then it's most likely Invincible, because unless he has some kind of crystal ball down there or something, he should have no idea what's happening on the surface, which means he has no idea how strong Mark is. So he probably still thinks Omni-Man is on Earth and he's still the most powerful. Still though, I have no idea. I'm just kind of spitballing here. Like it could be Invincible, Omni-Man, even Conquest. But now I understand why everyone hated Damien so much. I thought he was just getting flack for no reason, you know? But no, he's working with the whole Demon King and trying to take over the Earth? That's crazy. And that's every major difference between the show and the comic for the Invincible War and Conquest. And this is actually just part of the full breakdown I did on every single change in Invincible Season 3, with over 200 differences total on there. So if you want to check that out, links in the description, or you can click right here. And yeah, peace out.